We're live! Greetings and salutations, humans. Fellow humans, I suppose would be their way of saying that. Makes it sound like I'm not human, which could be true. You never know. Anyway, hi, folks. It is I, Mallory, and it is Lunch with Mal. It is January 1st, so most of you are probably going to watch this on replay because you're sleeping right now. Actually, at our age, I'm pretty sure most people go to bed well before midnight. I say our age as if we're all the same age, which is probably not true. But I do feel like I attract a more mature audience. And by mature, I mean older, not necessarily more mature. In fact, we're likely a very immature audience because we're writers, right? Like I feel like if being called mature is actually an insult to a lot of writers. So um, I mean that in the most non-insulting, loving way possible. I need something to fiddle with on this call because I have to fiddle on all calls or streams or whatever because if I don't, I'll start chewing my fingers or something like that. That's embarrassing to do on camera. Anyway, we got folks here. So hi, say hello if you wish. It's good to know. Good to see peeps. I'm probably going to keep this to be relatively short today, like only 30 minutes, but I do have a topic that's actually near and dear to my heart. It came up in our weekly roundtable that we had this past Tuesday, 2 days ago. Time is weird. This is the time between times, right? Like there is no actual time right now. Anyway, it was about goals and whether or not goal setting is the right thing for you to do, and whether or not like you could use systems instead of goals. Hey Monique, how you doing? I'm glad you can hear me now. It's much more definitely better that way. Um, and also I say that not saying that you shouldn't have goals, but sort of like what in what ways will goals versus systems work, and we'll get into that a little more. But in addition, right now in Storyteller Lab, which is storytellerlab.net, Heather Hildebrand has a new classroom that she's shared with us that is actually about goal setting. And so if you're looking for ideas or inspiration for setting your goals for 2026, you can absolutely use that. Hey, Tim, happy 2026 to you too. To everybody, of course. Well, wow, we're getting a bit of a crowd here. I guess we are all the types who go to bed at like 10 o'clock on New Year's Eve. Although I guess for some people it's like for Monique it's like the evening now, so or approaching evening, so it's unlikely she'd be in bed by then. Hey Kathy, how you doing? So let's talk about I mentioned goals versus systems and what is the difference between these two and like what does that even mean, goals versus systems? And I think a good way of describing it is kind of like kicking back around to my software development days where I heard this catchphrase, um, convention over configuration, right? So, and you're like, what does that mean now? Like convention over configuration? Well, let me give you an idea. Like we put the table of contents at the beginning of the book. It's a convention. No one has to go hunting for the table of contents. It's not in the middle. It's not the end. It's not like three-quarters of the way through. It's not after chapter one. You don't have configuration. You don't have to have anything saying like, hey, go find the table of contents here because we put it at the beginning of the book. And table of contents are formatted a particular way. Therefore, Kindle can pick it up and then display that table of contents to the user. There was no special, you didn't have to do any special configuration to do that. It's all just done by convention. We always do it the same way, and then everything just kind of works without having to think about it. Another great example, that is one up at 7. Okay, Monique, you are crazy. Another great one, and this is not universal, but I sure wish it was, is leaving a building. You push out, the door opens out. You push to go out, you pull to go in. This didn't used to be a convention, and therefore a lot of doors have to have the words push or pull on them. They have to have configuration shown because the convention wasn't always in place. The convention is slowly taking over because, of course, the reason why is if there's a fire or an emergency where people need to get out of the building, you don't want to have people pulling at the door while people are piling up behind them. It's a safety concern. So out is push, in is pull, convention over configuration. And we this exists everywhere in our lives. Everything that just sort of makes sense or is common sense is likely that way because it's a convention that we all accept, and we don't have to do configuration. Um, where your things are in your cupboards in your kitchen is works great for you because you know it, but it's configuration. Someone else can go into your kitchen and not have a clue where to find things. Now, likely your cups are right beside the sink or something like that where you normally use them. So there is some convention, but a lot of your kitchen is configuration. And it's not easy for someone else just to dive into your kitchen, know where everything is, and start cooking. Um, Grocery stores are like halfway between them, right? Like there are certain things that are in obvious places, and dear God, some grocery stores put stuff in places, so they're like half convention, half configuration. And every time we go to a new grocery store, we sure wish there was a convention for where everything was in grocery stores. So there's some sort of background into this concept of convention versus configuration. And convention makes things easier. It streamlines processes. It makes it easier for people to adopt things, and stuff just works when we all follow the convention. Traffic lights, for example, are another fabulous convention. Hey, so throw us in Tim. Happy birthday, happy New Year to you too. So when it comes to like your planning for the next year, a lot of times we set goals and we stack up all of these different goals, and we're like, cool, I'm going to do all these things. I don't have a plan for how I'm going to do these things, but surely there's enough time between now and then that I can probably pull it off. And if you're like most people, you're probably really bad at estimating how much time it actually takes you to do things, um, which is like a whole separate problem. And also one that I feel to a certain extent was well solved in my software development years, where we would take a project, and we would break it down into stories. And the stories in software development, the stories are all like as a user, as an administrator, as an ops person who has to maintain this software. So it would always start with like the person, and you say like, I need to be able to do X, Y, Z so that X, Y, A, B, C can happen, or something like that. Like we had these stories, and then you would size the stories, and you're like, well, we need a logging system. You're like, that's not a story, that's an epic, right? And then you're like, okay, well, now we take this epic, we have to break down a logging system that logs events into stories. Um, and Sorry, conversation interrupted behind me and confused me. Um, so we would then size them, and the sizes. Every team has different sizing that they do, but sizes would go in between one, and the size of one could take you like 5 minutes, all the way up to like a size of, I think our biggest size we would run was like 12 or something like that, and 12 is going to take you 2 solid weeks of work to do. And so that's how we estimated time. We would sort of like we would size things by effort and by complexity, and then we would say like, okay, as a team, we traditionally get this much stuff done in a 2 week period. And we would go look at like all of our history and be like, okay, on average, a team of 6 people, we did 70 points worth of stuff. And so that worked. We was like, okay, so that means our point load for 2 weeks can't be more than 70. And we would sign, sorry, Tim. I apologize for triggering you right now on your day off. But we would use that to gauge effort. Now I'm not saying that you need to start using Scrum or Agile, which are our software, and are related to Kanban, which many people in the writing community are kind of familiar with. I'm not saying you need to start doing that, but you do really need to sit down and like look at um, how much writing you can actually get done, how much time a launch takes you, and like really be brutally honest with yourself and determine how long it actually takes you to do things. Um, and even like, do I have more caregiver duties this year? I have a spreadsheet that in our launch plan, that came to the launch plan book, that was like one of the questions was, how many humans do you care for? Because it could be kids, it could be partners, it could be, you could be like, I have an ailing animal that basically counts for as much care as a human. I have aging parents. That all takes time. So we need to like really be honest with ourselves how much time we have to do things, and then say like, okay, given my past life, it takes me 45 days to write a book and 30 days to revise a book, and launching a book takes me 20 days worth of effort, something like that. And then you would also go through your calendar and like, where are my vacations? When is family? When's my mom coming to visit me? Stuff like that. I really understand, you know, how much work you can actually get done in a year, and then set your goals according to that, rather than just be like, I think I can probably do 5 books this year. I did 4 fairly easily last year. I think I can do 5 this year. Really sit down and think about it. Or be like, 5 was way too much last year. I need to scale it back to 4. Great. But if you don't really have a plan, you don't have a good understanding of how long it takes you to do work with all the other things in your life mixed up, you could end up just like not achieving your goals. And every time you fail to achieve a goal, you feel bad, right? Um, so achieving the goals gives you wins. Wins give you dopamine hits. They motivate you to keep going forward. So breaking your work up in such a way that you get as many wins as possible is really the ideal way to roll. You want to maximize your wins and minimize scenarios where you just through poor planning set yourself up for failure. Oh, thanks, honey, for linking this lifestyle spreadsheet. I appreciate that. Um, that's awesome, Tim. Tim says all good here. Oh, that's about triggering him first, triggering him about his day job. Doing a lot of what's my process right now, and optimizing my basic writing plan, my social media effort, promo process, still learning stuff. That's good. That's really good. One thing that I think, just in working with authors, that if you really want to like improve your production flow, I think the number one thing that authors need to focus on is honing your craft and reducing rewrites. Some people spend like 3 or 4 times more on rewrites than they do on the first draft. But if you hone your craft and you really start thinking about like, okay, I'm writing a scene, it's got these characters, it's gonna end in a big dramatic blow up or something like that. I need to basically make sure that I introduce the characters fluidly throughout the scene, make sure everybody knows who's there, set the stage where everybody is physically if necessary. And then that way, when the big blow up happens, I don't have to like pause and like describe setting and stuff like that. Or I need these things to happen. Therefore, these people need to be there from the get go. These set pieces need to be in place. Things like that help you streamline your writing process. The better you get at that, the closer you can get to writing a first draft, making a couple of tweaks afterwards, and handing it to your editor. That's like the number one way to improve your flow. So circling back around, goal setting requires you to know how much work you can do. Because if you don't know how much work you can do, you're going to set unrealistic goals. But the other thing is that if you just work at a goal standpoint and you're just like, I just need to get this book done, and you don't really think about like milestones or anything along the way, you're going to be in crunch mode at the end, and you're going to stress yourself out, and it's going to be hard. It's going to feel great when you're done, but the process of getting there isn't going to feel great. And I think most authors are neurodivergent. I think this is just some sort of like quirk of one of the other, either authorship or neurodivergency, that makes the other one a requirement almost. But we do really well if you have ADHD, you do really well with the stress trigger. I think everybody actually does well with the stress trigger. And by well, I mean you can be very productive. The problem for ADHD people, of course, is that we love being in hyperfocus. Hyperfocus is great flow state, right? Like we can just nail it and get so much work done. And the best way to trigger flow state, stress. Use the stress trigger to trigger flow state, and then you get the work done in some sort of Herculean effort at the last minute, and you get a huge dopamine hit, and it feels great. The problem is that you can't do that forever. It's brutal. It burns you out. It's not fun for people who are around you to have to deal with. It's not fun for you really to have to deal with. It's not great for your body. All those sorts of things. So you got the goal. You know how much effort it's going to take you to do it, and you need to break it down into smaller chunks, and you need to use a system for those sorts of things. Getting the work done has to be a system where you're like, hey, I'm going to write X amount of hours every day. And I'm going to facilitate this by making sure I have a distraction-free space to do it in. I'm going to have the place where I do admin work for my business be different from the place I do writing work for my business, whatever it might end up being. That's actually one of the reasons why Jill and I have leased office space, so that admin writing-wise business can happen in a different space by and large, at least for me, not so much for her. Jill's better at this than I am. From where like writing might happen. Writing can be in a different space. It's about creativity, and then you don't automatically think, oh, I'm sitting here, I should be checking all the work things. So you have systems of like, I'm going to do this much work this week, and I'm going to measure the work in a certain way. For writers, it's fairly easy to measure work by words. Um, or you can measure it by scenes that you have to write or something like that. And you also say to yourself, I am going to limit social media promotion time to this amount. I'm going to limit admin work to this amount. Because let's be honest, most of the admin work that people do, most of the promotional work, the social media work that we do doesn't massively contribute to our bottom line. The next book contributes a lot more to our bottom line. Depending on where you are in your career, there are certain points in your career where you have to build the fan base, so you have to do that other kind of work. Of course, that'd be part of your systems. What systems am I going to put in place? What goals are those systems going to have? And then go from there. Yes, Kate, I hear you so much. Hello, Deborah. Happy New Year. Deborah said, Kate says, I really need to work on it, not taking a stretch trigger to be productive. It was so hard this last year. I hear you. And it took me years to train myself off that because I relied on it so heavily that after I committed to no longer using the stress trigger to hyperfocus and get work done, I didn't know how to work. So if you are going to like take that plunge, it's going to be a transition. It's going to be a little bit frustrating, and you're going to feel like you can't produce things, which is why a system will help. And kind of give you guys an idea of like what that can look like in practice. Back when I was crazy and I was writing a book a week or a book every 2 weeks, I broke everything I did down to day of week. So books always came out on Thursdays. And actually it's a great day to release your books. It's on a Thursday. You hit your hardcore fans on Friday, build up some reviews, and then you could like launch promos or sales on Monday, do your big push on Monday. The best email open days are Sunday and Monday. So I scheduled my whole thing around that because I always did countdown deals for all my releases. So I would release the book on Thursday. It would be on pre-order for at least a month, and those 30 days on pre-order counted towards your eligibility for Kindle countdown deals. So I'd schedule a Kindle countdown deal on Thursday. I'd schedule on Thursday, but it would be for Sunday. Run Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and then I would email people on Thursday, the hardcore fans, saying the book's out. Sunday, I'd email everybody, say like, "Hey, the book's on sale," and they all knew that I would run sales. People who were on fixed incomes and whatnot could take advantage of that. Tuesday, I'd say sale ends today. Next book comes out on Thursday. Here's what it is, and I would have these systems in place, and it was just very easy to get everything rolling. And then when I started writing a book, or when I was planning out writing a book, I would make sure a week before that I contacted the cover artist for the following book, so that by the time I was done writing the book, I'd have my cover. Basically, I booked time well in advance, and my cover artist had space in his calendar for me, even though it was like 3 weeks before I needed the cover a lot of the time. So that when I was about to release the book, I already had the new cover in hand, pre-order. Like I had systems in place for everything, and that helped everything run really smoothly. And so it didn't take a ton of thought process to remember how to do everything. And that's the sort of system that you could have as an author that would really help you. Like I run sales every second week on day X, so I'm going to send a newsletter every second week on day X. And you could schedule a lot of stuff well in advance and barely have to think about it. So that can help you a lot, and it can help you with budgeting your time so that you can meet your goals. All right, so Tim says, I tracked words religiously when I started. Now I kind of focus on chapters written. I read a lot of small chapters, action spies, thrillers, so it's not. Yeah, the chapter thing, so the word thing can be good and it can be bad. It can be great when you're like swinging for the fences and hitting it every time, and really just cranking out the words. But boy, tracking words can really be a demotivator if you're having trouble with a book or with something, with a scene, or you're in burnout or something like that. And so you do need to change your metrics to what's going to help you get the win at any given time. If your metrics are such that they're making you feel bad all the time, and you feel like your progress tracking system is just beating you up and demoralizing yourself, then you need to change your progress tracking system. So I like that. I like changing on that. And that kind of goes back to like the sizing that we would do in the software world. We recognized, like a 1 point story could take you 5 minutes, could take you half an hour. And a 12 point story would take you 2 weeks. And you're kind of looking at that, and you're like, well, that doesn't track linearly now, does it? I'm like, no, of course not. And but we still, if someone was going to take on 12 one-point stories, we wouldn't let them take any more work for the 2 weeks because the process of task switching and getting something, getting stakeholders to approve this small change you made to some wording or something like that, getting it pushed into production. There was a lot of other stuff going on. And then task switching, making sure everything, all your ducks were in a row for the next story. Oh, I need an icon from design, whatever it might be. Even those small little things can actually have a lot of other things tacked onto them. So um, they aren't necessarily small in all ways, and you don't have to like. It's not only the big Herculean things that matter, right? And a lot of small things that on their own take a minuscule amount of time add up. They are not the sum of their parts. They are like a multiple of their parts. Um, and in a way, it's kind of what writing is like, right? Like it should be just like, oh, I just sit down and I write for 2 hours a day, and that's going to give me, um, maybe gives you 2,000 words a day, and I'll be done my book in 45 days. And it's just not like that, right? It doesn't work that well. Sometimes it does, but it doesn't always work that well. It says, been reading your books while you went through that transition. I can recognize when you went through it from when the books came out. Yeah, you can. You totally can, Tim. Uh, other Tim Gallo says, when I started, I had a calendar, smiley face stamp. I forced myself to write 5 hours a day. When I was done, I stamped my calendar in a happy face. 3 months later, I had a good habit. Yeah, that is a good habit too. And I say to people too, if you really want to like move, maintain progress in getting a book done, write every day. Even if it's just a sentence, even if your writing every day involves reading the chapter you wrote last time and making some tweaks, be in the story every day. Because if you take too long a break, you'll forget stuff, and then that's where the revisions start to creep in, and the whole process just starts to get exponentially long. I'm curious if anybody on right now has any systems that they use for organizing their work, helping get things done, that they use to make sure that they're sort of always moving forward, always making progress. Not necessarily focus on a big goal, but just sort of like business-wide career progress. Or if you don't, and you think you want to get something like that, then I'll stick around because I'll probably be talking about this a bunch more through the next few lunch with Mal's. I'm still kind of shocked by how many people are here today. There's like 20, 25 people across all the different places. I thought you'd all be sleeping. I woke up just in time to celebrate New Year's with everybody in Alaska, which means it was around 2 in the morning. And I really didn't fall back to sleep after that. So I'm kind of like running on fumes today, but still wanted to do this. And I still have to go work on painting the office that Jill and I are leasing. I'm getting pretty close to being done. I took the 2 weeks before leading to Christmas off, though. Spend more time with the fam and whatnot. But I want to get that done so we can move in there. And then you'll see me like streaming from one of like 2 or 3 new locations because we're going to have like different sort of studio rooms in there. It's going to be pretty sweet. Kate says, I don't have systems and I need it. And hello, Lainey. Laura says, it'd be nice if creativity could work like systems. I love it. I love systems because then I don't have to make decisions daily. I can set everything up ahead and not think about decision fatigue. Yeah, this is a really good point. And I do agree. I recognize that creativity, tapping the muse, as like what a lot of people say when they're sort of getting started, when you're relying solely on inspiration to write, it doesn't just happen all the time. Although the more you do it, the more it becomes like just turning a faucet on and off, and then you can just write. But one of the things I think is really important that Dora said there was she mentioned decision fatigue, which is a real thing. Making decisions is actually like a physically exhausting thing. And as writers, we actually make decisions for our characters all the time. And for our brains, the effort and the load isn't really any different. We were actually making those decisions, for real life. So systems are great in that, they can take load off and free you up for the decision making you have to do in the writing versus having to make all these, administrative and business decisions all the time or even household decisions. One of Generally, don't have anything like this right now. But one of the best things we did for a while was hiring cleaners, because just that load, and the interruptive nature of house cleaning work took up so much of our time that it was actually, from a time management productivity perspective, it was significantly more cost effective to hire someone else to clean the house. Plus, the cool thing about someone else cleaning your house is the whole thing's clean at once. When we clean our houses, generally is people living in them. We clean them like one room at a time. The house is never clean everywhere. And it's super cool to have a house that's clean everywhere. Oh, Dora, full time teacher is your day job. Yeah, you just live in decision fatigue. Then that's uh, that's a decision heavy job if ever there was one, for sure. So, so yeah, I mean, there's, systems, and actually, I would imagine that one of the things a lot of teachers do, start thinking back from my days being taught, is there's probably a lot of like stuff that you do by rote. Certain days, certain periods, certain time frames, these things happen, and that like helps out a lot. Tim says, I do daily posts on Facebook in the myth of maybe finding organic traffic. I usually plan it a week at a time. Basically, my research for my books becomes posts, edutainment type content. If you were to doing that, Tim, Facebook is probably the worst place for you to do that sort of thing. Facebook primarily only shows your content to people who are friends with you or who are following you. It's very rare that Facebook surfaces content to other people from sources they don't follow. And for it to do that, they have to be massive sources, right? Like, have to be something trending massively on Facebook for it to show up start showing up in everybody's feed. It's Facebook is a one to few ratio, um, platform, and unless you are a big, a very specific power and reach, as far as Facebook's algorithm is concerned, you're never going to even reach a global audience. Um, Other platforms like Twitter, which I don't think very many people use anymore, Threads, Instagram, TikTok, those platforms are purely trending based first. TikTok is especially trending based first, right? Like, you barely see anything from the people you follow. You see stuff that like the algorithm thinks relates to you. So if you're going to put a lot of effort like doing that kind of content, I would do it on Threads, um, Instagram, and TikTok. Trying to think if there's anybody else I would really use. I mean, depending on your kind of content, if you're like making like graphs, I think Pinterest could be good. Pinterest is one of the largest social media platforms. I don't think so. Probably for most of us, we wouldn't, unless you're doing really visual stuff. Pinterest wouldn't work. But anyway, those platforms are all have every post has the potential to have global reach, whereas Facebook they don't. So if you're really thinking about like where to like put your effort, I would not be putting it on Facebook. I would be working on building my one to many, outreach elsewhere. Um, Instagram. So yeah, if you're doing any content on Instagram, it has to be video content. Like, still image content only shows to existing followers. Um, but if you want to reach like new people, then it's reels. Tim says, most of my friends get a small trickle of newbies, but I enjoy the posts, so I need to find out a place. Hate Twitter, never really looked at Threads. Threads is really cool because Threads is purely conversational. In fact, posts that have pictures on Threads do terribly. Posts that do not have pictures and are actually like people telling stories do great. There are authors on Threads who basically take chunks of their books and tell them as though they're first person stories, and they do super well. Some of them are taking liberties and just lifting stuff off of Reddit and stuff like that, and you can kind of start to spot those ones after a while. You're like, no, there's no way you have all this content to be sharing. And you do a bit of research, and sure enough, it's all coming off Reddit. But there are some authors who take chunks of their own stories and they tell them as though it's first person, and it's very compelling, and they get a lot of interaction. Threads is all about actual conversations and communities and stuff like that. It's a great place, um, in my experience. Some people say that the author Threads is really toxic, but I'm not super exposed to that. I whenever I'm on social media, I'm not generally when I'm on social media as an author. I'm not interacting with other authors. I'm interacting with readers. So I don't really. That's how I use Threads. So I don't really experience, any of that sort of negativity. Uh, so something to think about. I like that you enjoy the posts. I think you're already making this content. How could you leverage it to actually reach more people? Is sort of what I'm thinking. Um, Doris, do you talk about how you break down your time for marketing, ads, etc.? You mentioned the crazy book timeline, which I remember being too much, but how do you break down the business side? Um, I break down business work into, like, it's very task focused. If I have a task to do on the business side, then I do it. Um, and even when I was like going hard and pumping out tons of books and everything like that, my limit for business time was maybe 3 hours a week that I would spend. Um, I wouldn't spend any time more than that. And I really boiled it down to basically the best return I got on investment was advertising, um, reader magnets, advertising paid books, advertising reader magnets, and then my newsletter. And of course, the reader magnet stuff was all about newsletter growth. And I would also do some multi-author stuff to help with newsletter growth as well. And running my ads for myself took 1 to 2 hours a week. And once I wrote my reader magnets, then that just ran like clockwork, and that the time, the 2 hours a week of ad time was enough to handle it. And then it was my newsletters, and my newsletters were fairly, like, I had a framework, a template I used every single time, and I sort of just wrote like a couple of paragraphs. So it was maybe at most, if I was putting a bunch of sales, at most 2 hours a week for newsletters, but they typically got them down in 1 hour a week because I really worked out like what was actually giving me a return. I use the 80-20 rule, right? Like 20% of your effort is giving you 80% of your results, and 80% of your effort is giving you 20% of your results. So what are those things in that 80% camp? They really aren't doing much for you. And I just stripped them all out. Uh, but it is also a lot of discipline, right? Like social media is easy to get sucked into. And so I made sure I did things to limit how easy it was to get sucked into social media, by limiting the times of day when I could do it. Um, and then also, I chat on Facebook Messenger a lot, but I never actually go to Facebook to do that because Facebook is dangerous, right? Your little messenger box is down in the corner, and everything else is this feed that's trying to pull your attention away with 1,000 different things. So I use messenger.com, which is just Messenger, and you don't have all the other distractions from Facebook floating around. Uh, my phone is always on do not disturb, always on do not disturb. Nothing on my every single time anything on my phone is like, can we send you notifications? The answer is no. If I want to find out something, I will check that app. I never have any apps reach out to me. The same thing on Windows, on my computer. My computer is always in do not disturb mode because our technology is built to like try and pull our attention and get us to pay attention to it, and I need to pay attention to my work. So I try to be very focused and limit my interactions with all sorts of things to be able to get my work done. So Tim says, "Oh, look at threads then. It's owned by Meta, so I'm guessing you use Meta Business Manager to post there. I don't know if you can use Meta Business Manager to post there yet. I haven't actually. I like working in the app directly. Um, I feel like to leverage an app, you have to be a user of the app to be able to sort of understand the kind of content people are looking for and whatnot. So I tend to post directly in apps, and you can do it. You can use Threads via like a web page, just like Instagram. But you can run ads now on Threads. So I'd be shocked if you couldn't do posts through Business Manager as well. Most of my reader magnets, Final 11 book funnel. I also joined your promos there. Should run ads to the promos or directly to your magnet. To the magnet. Your most valuable readers are the ones that interact only with you and then decide to share their information with you. So I'll run the ads directly to your magnet. And you run a lead ad, not a traffic ad. It's a lead ad. You have to use the Facebook Pixel, and then the book funnel will actually tell Facebook when someone signs up, and Facebook will be cool. I'm going to find more people like that, and you can oftentimes get, email addresses for as low as like 15 cents an email address. $5 a day can get you like, come on, Brady, do math quick. Like 20 people a day, or take a bit. Let's go with that. You used to be able to. Are you talking about Threads specifically? I'm not sure. I'm on Discord. Mainly to talk to my fans, though. That's the only thing I really use Discord for, is talking to readers. which is fun and uplifting. It makes me feel good. Kate says, my magnet ads are doing really well. So glad I finally did that. Awesome. Yeah. I tell you, magnets are the best. And even if you don't get somebody to actually move on into book one right away, once they're on your newsletter, you can if you've got other book that's going to grab their attention and pull them in. Or maybe if you offer a sale or you just remind them about it at some point that they'll go for it. But the great thing is it costs you 15 cents to get them on your newsletter list and likely like maybe another 15 cents over the course of a few years to keep them there versus having to reach them every time with fresh advertising, which could cost you 30 to 50 cents, to get a click out of them or something like that. Probably not 50 cents, but it could be that high depending on what you're doing. So yeah, it's such a cost-effective way to manage that sort of thing. And with Facebook's algorithm changes, talked before about how there's like a funnel, a sales funnel that sort of exists. It's very common parlance in sales, and just sort of like awareness advertising or just getting people to click on a thing is up at the top of the funnel, and then you start to winnow down the results until you get people who are actually going to purchase. And the further the event is down the funnel, the more valuable it is in identifying is this person an actual customer or not. And leads are mid funnel, whereas traffic ads are almost top of funnel. So when you run lead ads on Facebook, Facebook's like, wow, these people actually like filled out a lead form of some sort for this particular business. So I'm going to treat that audience segment as like a core, this is their audience kind of thing, over and above like the audiences that maybe are engaging in traffic ads. So it really helps to tune Facebook to understand who your audience really is, because they're like, well, I got all these people just clicking, but these people are engaging, they're actually like doing a thing, they're filling out a form. So I'm going to be like, I know that's the core audience, and that way if a particular ad appeals to this offset of people that really aren't your core audience and they click like crazy, it won't screw everything up. Facebook will be like, well, that's interesting that those people are clicking a bunch, but this is the core audience, and I know that because they're filling out lead ads. So they're filling out forms on lead ads. So it's a great way to tune the algorithm and help Facebook find the right people more and more for your ads. I went longer than I thought I was going to go today, which reminds me, I have to restart my lead ads. I killed them all off a couple months ago because I was working on some rewrites to my lead stories, just sort of tuning them up and whatnot. And I need to fire that all back up again. And then one of my co-authors reached out to me. I might have mentioned this at previous Lunch with Mal a couple of weeks ago, and he'd been through the ringer lately in life. And we were on book 8 book 9. We'd done 9 books in what was going to be an 11 or 12 book series. And it kind of hung there for a couple of years, but he actually wrote the next book, and he's like, I don't even know if you want to publish this, but I just needed to write it. I'm like, hell yes, I want to publish this. So I've been reading that. It's been a really good read. I don't know where we're going with that, but oh yeah, that's why I haven't launched the ads. They relaunched my ads for my reader magnets. Tim said, I've heard you say it's good to target $5 a day for ads. Would $1 a day give any real value to? Yeah, $1 a day is not going to get you anywhere with ads. I don't even know if Facebook will let you run ads at $1 a day. I think their minimum is $3 that they'll let you spend. But it's not going to, Facebook's not going to learn who your audience is well enough. It's not going to keep up, because it also only like maintains the learning for a certain amount of time. It's never really going to get a grasp on who your audience is at $1 a day. Put $5 a day into a lead ad. That would be a better use of your money than trying to spread $5 across 5 different ads. My definite recommendation. All right, I am tired, as I mentioned early on, because I didn't get much sleep last night, and I'm having trouble maintaining focus. So I should go before focus completely abandons me and I just ramble incoherently or something like that. I don't think I've done that yet, but I feel like it's a risk. So it's been awesome chatting with you all today. I'm like quite shocked, like I said, that so many of you are like on and hanging out. But I guess it's like, hey, it's a day off. You're not expected to do anything else. Trying to get some writing work done. And I'm with you on that. I'm actually going to be when I'm painting the office. I'm going to 11 Labs has an app for your phone that can read audiobooks to you, but not audiobooks. They'll just read books to you, and the voices are really good. And they actually like they're good enough that the AI narration that 11 Labs does can even tell if it should be a male or female speaker most of the time. So like will change tone and all sorts of things. And so I've taken the book that my co-author wrote. I'm just listening to it while I paint, and it's quite enjoyable. He's definitely still got it after all these years. So, Cuddle with Pups Day. That sounds like a fabulous day. Yeah, Jill actually has done $10 to $20 a day on reader magnets and built like massive mailing lists before book one in the series even comes out, which is pretty awesome. Yeah, what Jill says, we do weekly Q&As and roundtables and stuff like that for people in various levels of our storytelling lab programming, and we're launching a new class on being fluent in Facebook ads starting on the 9th of January. So you get a lot more opportunities to chat and ask questions and stuff too. Very soon, Tim. Very soon. You will get it soon. It is always good to see Jill, isn't it, Dora? All right, folks, I'm going to jet because there's turkey soup waiting, and that's super important. Jill just laughed. I'm not sure if that means it's turkey soup is waiting. It was for the turkey soup. Okay, I could hear her saying that. Yeah, and Jill's also working on Jill co-authors me too. She's working on 2 stories for my universe as well. So it's gonna be a good year, which means I need to think about systems and how I'm gonna like go through all of this and not forget things and have things go awry. And I will definitely be talking more about systems in the coming weeks. So I will see you guys then. Have a fabulous day. Happy New Year and all that. And I hope you guys have a long weekend. I hope it's a good long weekend.